Okay, so Fade to Black.
Yes.
What was your emotional connection to the character when you first read the script? What made you want to play him?
Yeah, that's a great question. The movie's about a struggling screenwriter who basically is trying to get his first movie made, and then he's so frustrated by Hollywood that he ends up killing agents and executives and becomes a serial killer. So minus the second part, I could really relate to the first part because it's someone who came to Hollywood with no connections, trying to make it. I had been in a lot of those frustrating situations that the character's in and could deal with a lot of the frustration that he was going through. And a bunch of my friends who read the script, who've also worked, were like, this is capturing every feeling, every emotion. But you obviously fantasize about sometimes what you could do to some people, but in the movie you get the wish fulfillment of actually having me kill them.
And as an actor, do you need that? Because obviously you have to relate to the character in some way. Even I assume you never murdered anybody. I mean, you and I talked off camera by accident a couple of times. No,
I washed my hands a lot before this interview.
No, but
some
honestly,
red stuff came off.
is it something, especially if you get a little fantasy world, you always have to ground something in reality for you?
Yeah, I think
find
it's
that kernel of reality
yeah.
so you can play in the fantasy.
Yeah. I like having something in my real life to connect to, but if the writing is really good, you don't need any connection. The writing was really good here. But sometimes if you can tap into it, it's even better. And in this movie, I definitely tapped in. The writing was really good, but I definitely found some stuff in there from my real life.
Then what did you tap into for Deadpool?
That was, that's nothing about my life is there. No, Deadpool, the initially when I read the script, it reminded me a lot of this guy I went to high school with in India. So I just initially remember being like, oh, I'm playing a version of him. But then when he gets really violent in the second movie, that was not tapping into anything there. Yeah.
Did you have fun following the script, or sometimes you weren't improv? Because I assume Deadpool allowed a little more improv than most movies. How do you feel about being following the script, but also being allowed to do improv?
I love doing improv. I do it. I try to do it on most things. I think it's good if you can do it because it just makes words feel more natural and feel more like the character. We did do some of it in this movie because it's a satire ultimately, so there's some humor in it. So there was moments for that, but. If I can do it and get away with it, I'll do it. But yeah, I definitely, on Deadpool, it's a big part of it. Yeah.
But obviously it helped having a really good script and character.
Yes.
If you know your character, it allows you to kind of play a little.
Exactly.
But if you don't have that grounded character.
Exactly. It's a lot harder because then you're just fishing. Because all good improv comes from reality. So if there's clear scenes and clear character arcs, then you can improvise around it. But if there's not that in the beginning, you're just kind of saying jokes for the sake of saying jokes, which don't really make sense.
All right, so Fade to Black, what was it about that character and script that emotionally connected you when you first read the script?
He's a loving father who wants the best for his kid, and he is someone who his dreams haven't come true. Like he had to take the practical life of being an engineer and doing the thing that would make money and for security for the family, and so to be able to champion a son who wants to be a Hollywood writer, and yet he's been doing it for 9 years and he hasn't made it yet, and so now I say it's time for him to get out and come back home and get a regular job. So I liked that tension between wishing my son to be practical, but really secretly wishing for his dream to come true as a writer.
Now, we know it's a little kind of a darker tale.
Yes, it is.
But for you, did you need that to get into that kind of, let's say, semi-fantasy world? I'm hoping this doesn't happen in real life. Serial killing, murdering. But no, would it help you having to be grounded with a real father-son relationship, kind of as the emotional grounding?
Absolutely, yeah. It's just something I relate to, right? The darkness of Hollywood, being an actor in Hollywood, and the broken dreams of people around me. To see that, I love films like Mulholland Drive and Day of the Locust, like confused Day of the Jackal, Day of the Locust, and The Player. So anything, this had that kind of great Hollywood insider, yet everyone can relate to it, of anyone who has a dream.
Yeah. All right, so my last question is, you were in one of the two most awesome films ever, Matrix, Reloaded, and Revolutions.
Yeah, look at this.
I saw the jacket too. I was very excited when we saw the jacket. What was your experience like being a part of such a cultural phenomenon?
Right, it was such a blessing. Oh my God. First off, to travel to Australia. I'd never been to Australia, so I got to go to Australia for twice, for like a month one time, and then 2 months the next time for Revolutions. It was incredible. I was friends with Carrie Ann Moss before this, and so it was fun to see. And I thought she is the one who got me the role somehow, but she said she didn't. I loved it so much because I was such a fan of The Matrix in the first one. And then to play this guy that was just all about love, and yet he was a program, I'm really blessed to have been able to do that.
Fade to black.
Yes.
All right, so what was it about this story that really made you want to tell it?
Well, Brandon Cohen, the writer, is just a absolutely phenomenal writer. I'll give a quick little story. I was trying to find a script for a friend of mine who's becoming a budding movie star, but I was having a hard time finding the right fit. And I was reading everything. I'd read probably like 100 scripts, and then this one script popped up. And Brandon's voice was so specific, and it was so funny and true to everything that we'd experienced in this industry. And while it wasn't a fit for my friend, I immediately sent it to my producing partner. I was like, we got to make this. And that's kind of how it started about 6 years ago.
Without giving you too much of the plot details, what about the story, though, is that really got you hooked?
Just the plight of someone willing to go through everything to make it. I think everybody who's ever gone on an entrepreneurial experience, like, you either rise to the occasion or you don't, and at what lengths are you going to fulfill your dreams? So something like that really spoke to me. Obviously took a slightly darker twist, but it was that story of like, I will do whatever it takes to make it. I think that really like stood out to me.
So it's interesting from a character point of view. How far do you push it? When is it actually a good thing or a bad thing when you get what you want?
Exactly, yeah, and it's an anti-hero story, but yeah, every story there's different perspectives from every angle. So it was really something that really stood out.
Fade to black.
What was the inspiration for you? Really attracted you to the script when you first read it?
Well, I have to tell you, so I'm a member of the Writers Guild, and anybody who's been a writer in Hollywood has had executives tell them some pretty scary, awful things. And when I read the script, I started sweating because I felt like I had PTSD. I was experiencing what it was like trying to get your script sold all over again. And I was just like, well, obviously the writer's very good if he could make me feel that way. But two, I loved films like The Player and Entourage, things that sort of poke fun at Hollywood. And it had been so long since I had seen anything like that. And I thought, okay, I think the time is right. The corporate obsession on intellectual property has gone overboard. So in other words, original stuff, it's very, very hard to get original things made. It's actually one of the reasons that legionm came into existence is we wanted to make films that the studio wouldn't take on. And this is one of those films. So I just was like, let's do this. Let's find a way to do this. And to do it from the perspective of the writer, I thought would be very universal because everybody knows what it's like to want to do something really badly and to have so many gatekeepers and people who pull the rug out from under you. And it's infuriating. And, you know, how do you keep your momentum going? And now, of course, this is a very dark film, so this is what are you willing to do to get your film made?
Right. Now, you and I talked off camera. We have very limited homicidal tendencies.
Very
We
limited.
have some. We did a little like in college,
Yeah,
know,
sure.
but
You know,
but so for you to kind of go to the darker side of the story, but you really needed to ground it in reality too, though. Is that what you feel like? Grounded in reality, what it's
Well, you
like for a
always-
struggling writer, and then you can kind of have fun with the fantasy part.
yeah, you have, you know, I mean, there's a Walter Mitty-esque, I don't know if the audience even remembers who Walter Mitty is, but that's okay. Quality to this. There is, you know, you're in the writer's head, and it's done in a very interesting and fun way. But yeah, no, I mean, everybody has a dark side. Everybody fantasizes when you're treated badly that you would have the power to do something about that.
No.
And our character, I mean, we're so lucky to have Karan Soni, I mean, Karan, when I saw Karan in Deadpool steal the scenes from Ryan Reynolds, I was like, wow. And he's an everyman, and you want to be with him kind of no matter where he goes. And he goes to dark places. So.
It's interesting because I was asked about the legionm. It is, you're bucking the studio system. So you can kind of connect it a little to that. How is for you being the freedom of making your own stories without having to be tied to a studio system?
Well, I mean, it's not, when you say freedom, there's never freedom. You've got to make sure that, your investors are taken care of. And legionm, it's just that we have a different way of approaching it. We feel that the distance between producers and consumers should be much smaller. We feel like our investors they're investing from a monetary standpoint, but they're also investing from an emotional standpoint. They want to be able to say, I helped make that movie and I'm proud of it. I mean, we just had a movie in theaters called My Dead Friend Zoe with Ed Harris and Morgan Freeman and Sonequa Martin Green and Natalie Morales. And I've been getting phone calls. I've had people come up to me saying how meaningful it is. And that is the entire reason I got into the film world, is because I knew the power of film to elicit an emotional reaction. I think with Fade to Black, there's gonna be some thrills and chills and some humor, but there's also a statement about, what's important. What's important to people. What do you, is it worth, gaining the world but losing your soul? These are the questions that it poses.
Yeah, I actually recently spoke to Sonequa, and it was one of the most just if people see My Dead Friend, see the movie about post-traumatic stress, but in a very honest way, especially with our soldiers. And most personal story, and it was the director personal story.
God, it was his story.
But that's something that legionm allows to happen. Now you're allowing people like that to tell stories that would not be told.
We seek it out. That was part of the mandate from, it's 9 years now, and I feel like we are doing what we set out to do.